Welcome to what I read in April and then / my May TBR. My name is Ruth Seneca. I go by RM Seneca on this channel because that's what authors do, and I thought it was kind of cute to do my initials. The P is silent in Seneca, so that's where that comes from. I am new to BookTube. I have one video up talking about the BookTuber tag, but I cannot wait to get into all of the creative BookTube specific trends that they do. I already have a list of what book channel videos that I want to make. I read 4 books in April. I DNF'd one, not because it wasn't good, just because I simply just ran out of time to read it and I had to return it to the library. Also, another thing about me is I get all of my books, I get most of my books from the library. If I really like a book, I'll buy it. Or if I'm really looking forward to a book for my birthday or Christmas, I'll request a book. But for the most part, I'm 99% reliant on the library because I think the library is just a good resource to utilize. What I look for in a book I think is important because I watch certain booktubers and I'm like, okay, this was an interesting opinion, but I want to know specifically what is it that you have a taste for. So that's why in every single video I think I'm going to state this is what I look for in a book. This is what makes a book good to me, because sometimes you'll catch people that'll say oh, I really enjoyed this book, but that book to you could have been garbage, and you're like, why would you So I look for a book that's introspective. It feels more real to me if the main character is very much like an overthinker, very much in tune with their thoughts and their feelings, because that's just how I am as somebody who's very anxious, versus if a character is not, then I just can't connect to them, and that's just me. I look for a good cry because I feel like whenever you care about the characters, crying for them, it just solidifies how bonded you were to the story. I look for a book that's socially aware. If it's the political climate or just the environment or whatever, you have to know what the heck is going on in your surroundings. So I really appreciate that because it feels oh, this is a legitimate setting. And then I look for something that's potentially thrilling, because I used to think I only liked thrillers, but I really just like the thrill and books that aren't necessarily fast paced, but books that can keep your attention the way that a thriller can. The rating that I give is specific to how I would rate foods or restaurants. So for a 1-star, that would be a bad meal that made me ill. And obviously you're not going to go back to a place where they served you a bad meal that made you ill. 2s, that's a bland meal with no seasoning. I read that. It was food, For 3, that's baseline fast food. It's McDonald's. McDonald's can sometimes really hit, but overall it's not providing you any value. For 4s to me is dining out with a close friend or your significant other. I so value those times because they just feel very intimate, and they do provide value more than just food, because you are sharing experience with somebody and it's very nice. It's kind of catching up with a good friend at a good place. 5 would be if my favorite meal was cooked by a personal private chef in the most comfy setting. If I got my very favorite meal cooked and it was served to me in bed, oh my god, and it was everything was perfect. That to me is what a 5 is, and that's rare, does not happen, is a very special thing to me. I only have one book that I've rated a 5 out of 5, and that was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, and it filled everything that I was looking for. The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. The one word that I would describe this book is conflicting. So this book is set in Australia. It mainly follows this couple, Gabe and Pippa Gerard. It is about kind of their conflicting relationship. Their house is placed on the edge of a cliff, and they bought it not knowing that house is notorious where people come to jump off of the cliff to unalive themselves. So they get kind of used to Gabe Gerard, of course the husband, being the figure that goes to save people who attempt to unalive themselves or who are in the process of attempting to unalive themselves. So he will literally talk them off of a ledge. So the book kind of starts off with this woman is going to attempt to unalive herself, or so it seems. And you see that Pippa is realizing that they're having a conversation and all of a sudden the woman falls and you're like, ooh, shoot. But it looks like she didn't fall at her own will. It kind of looked like Gabe pushed her. And so throughout the book, it goes between Pippa's perspective. It describes Pippa and Gabe's relationship. It describes the person who fell. So we have, her name is Amanda's perspective as to what potentially happened. And the whole entire book is just kind of unraveling the series of events of what led up to that moment. There's so many relationships in this that are conflicting. There are so many things in this book where you think it's one of those things where it's like everything is not what it seems. And I also say this is conflicting because you can't really trust the main person who you would typically root for. There's a lot of conflict in the marriage. There is some betrayal. I felt a lot of sympathy for everybody. That's why it's mainly most conflicting, is because like you see everybody's side in it. I gave this book a 3 because I almost want to give it a 3.5. No, I'm giving this book a 3 because ultimately it had like a little bit of everything of what I was looking for. It just didn't have the like excitement that I was looking for. You know, when you're so excited to read a book and you like get off of the last chapter, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read more. I kind of was just waiting for it to be done, not because I was excited about the ending. I was just kind of like, well, I'm just kind of reading this, you know. But I will say, if you do like thrillers and if you are a fan of Sally Hepworth or Alice Feeney, highly recommend for you. That sounds like a dig. For you. The next book is called Late Bloomers by Deepa Var. I'm going to hit myself in the head if I do not get this correct. Deepa Varadarajna. I hope I said that correctly. Oh my god. I am going to describe this not in one word because I simply can't. This book was a comfort to the overthinkers and the overfeelers of the world. This book follows a family of 4. The parents are going through a divorce, and this kind of just follows the story of their divorce and kind of like the bumps of having a divorce later in life, because the 2 people, Suresh and Lata, and their daughter and son. Daughter is Priya, and then son is Nikesh. And they're all late bloomers. So it's very interesting because if you are a late bloomer, you'll probably find a lot of solace in this, because it's kind of following the idea of being a late bloomer in terms of coming to what a proper relationship should look like. Because Suresh and Lata got married, but it was an arranged marriage, and from their view they see other people who have an arranged marriage and they're like, it worked out perfectly for them. I was hoping it could just work out perfectly for me too, but that just wasn't the case. And then Priya and Nikesh are late bloomers, also in love and relationships, just because they didn't really have a good model for what it looks like to have a good relationship, because Suresh and Lata were just not supposed to be together and just were. The book follows the perspective of all people and kind of popcorns from person to person, but I would say just because it starts with Suresh's view doesn't mean that like he is the main character of this. I would more so say that this stems mainly from Lata, because I think you feel for her the most in this. Also, because being a mother figure that did make the decision to enact the divorce, her actions, her words, her everything in everybody else, because she was the person who kind of like sets the pace for this. Suresh is getting into the world of online dating as an older man. Lata is kind of trying to figure out dating on her own, but has a tremendous guilt as to if she should start dating, if she should tell her kids about dating, because she knows that they'll be angry about it. Priya is having a lot of relationship issues as it relates to potential like affairs. Nikesh is having some issues with his kind of shorter term relationship. I don't want to give away too much, so I'm going to leave out what I was going to say about Nikesh. Although it is a comfort to overthinkers and feelers, there's a lot more thinking and there's a lot more processing than there is actual action. So I don't think that a lot of people are going to like this, because it's like a lot of these are just thoughts that are not said, but if they were said, there would be no book. Like a lot of the reviews kind of do talk about if they had just had a conversation, then problem solved. But it's like if they had a conversation, this book wouldn't even be like for sale. What? So I gave this book a 4 because I really enjoyed it. It felt like I was talking to a friend at a comfortable restaurant. Next book I read is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It says Chris Voss and there's another author, but this is mainly from his perspective, and I'm assuming the other author was mainly the person who was just helping him write this. Sorry that I just didn't acknowledge his name. This book follows the perspective of, well, and then it's also nonfiction. It's from his experience. An FBI negotiator talks about his not only experiences, but his advice into how to negotiate for kind of anything that you would want in life. This is the book that I DNF'd, not because I wasn't interested, but simply because I just didn't have the time. I don't know how much I got in. I listened to it on audio because reading and listening to me are just different things. I don't know. I feel like when you read something with a physical book, it's just different than like when you hear it. I don't know how controversial that take is. How do we feel about audiobooks? I personally love them. I just don't want to rely on that for all of my reading. But yeah, so he's an FBI negotiator talking about his experiences with instances where he's had to negotiate for hostages' lives, and about the techniques that he used in order to gain his success, talking about his kind of first days as a student, as to how he was kind of an overachiever in negotiating, just kind of naturally had that talent, and what he learned along the ways of being educated, being in real life situations that were really hard for him, and then also explains the pros of negotiation, because negotiation isn't everything, and he states that in his book, that you negotiate every single day. You negotiate like little decisions and big decisions. So I think if you're looking for a book that's going to help you with negotiation skills or just like persuasion. I took a persuasion class in high school, and this to me reminded me of so many things that I learned in that class. I highly recommend it, just if you're looking for like just a book that's not necessarily self-help, even though I guess it could go into the self-help category. But just something that if you were like wanting to learn about like how do I improve my communication skills so that I can get more things that I want and need, this is that book for you. I don't feel like I can properly rate this because I DNF'd it, and I don't think I was more than like 30% in. But so far, I will say I'm going to give it a 4. Like, I don't think it's going to disappoint me and drop to like a 3, but that's just what I'm going to give it. The words in which I would describe this book are informative and captivating. The last book that I read, because I know that a lot of people are probably looking at this video because they recognize this book, because it's like really popular right now, is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I don't know why I said darker like that. So I've read a few Alice Feeney books. The first book that I attempted to read from her was Sometimes I Lie, and then Rock, Paper, Scissors, because my friend, I think, recommended it to me, and I was like, oh, this is great. I liked Daisy Darker. I thought it was very interesting. The main character, Daisy, who's kind of an outcast in her family, they have this reunion where they're celebrating their grandmother's birthday. It was predicted that she was going to die at the age of 80, and so they get together. Some spooky things happen on the birthday. The grandmother, I don't know if I should give this, but the grandmother kind of just turns up dead, okay? On the birthday, and it doesn't look like it was of natural causes, and so everybody's kind of going crazy thinking about exactly what happened. The family was not nice to Daisy. Like I said, she's an outcast, but she really is just not properly acknowledged. She was bullied by her family. They're kind of just slowly being exposed for the people that they are. But also this was after the grandmother read off the will for who was going to get what, so you're kind of thinking, oh, somebody was angry about the will results, who the heck killed her, or just other alternatives. Slowly, chaos unveils, and there are just a few deaths in this. And I don't know how much more I can say because I really don't want to spoil anything. But I give this book a 3.5 because it's a little higher than just like baseline food. It's like if I'm in the mood for some fast food, okay, if I'm in the mood for a thriller that's gonna like make me feel a little bit of something, I'll do it. But it didn't push me over to the edge where I was like, wow, that really tapped me. I want to give it the 4, but there's just something that was holding it back for me. I would love to see this book be made into a movie, but if you've read the book, like there's just so many parts about it that you're like, this can't be made into a movie. But I think it'd be really cool. The TBR, I have the books that I checked out from the library for this month. I only have 3. I could have gone a little higher, but I always go into the library biting off so much more than I can chew, and then I have books that I have to return earlier than I have finished them, and it's just really disappointing. Also, fun fact, I went to the library, forgot to return a book that I have needed to return for like a long time, and I just renewed it. Which was what the heck book was that? Killers of the Flower Moon, which is phenomenal book. So the first book on my TBR is Open Water. I know little to nothing about this except for the description that I read, but I have really been wanting to read a romance book followed on a black romance specifically. So I'm excited to get into this. I don't even know if this is 100% romance. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But my friend also said that this was really good, so I'm excited to get into it. I haven't gotten into it yet. Sally Rooney. Before we even talk about this book, a lot of people like Normal People. If you don't know if you don't know the fact that Normal People is a book, that probably sounded like it wasn't correct, but a lot of people like the book Normal People, and I was gonna read Normal People, but I was like, I don't know, because I attempted to watch the show Normal People that was obviously adapted from the book, and there's something about when there's a story of lovers who are just a little too what's the word, like I don't know, there's like a little too much tension between them where it's just like it's either like enthralling for you or just it was like frustrating for me to watch this show. I just found it to be a little bit slow moving, so I don't know if I'm gonna watch, or I don't know if I'm gonna read Normal People, but I hope one day I can, because I hear the writing is very realistic, which is something I am craving from romance books, just realism. I read like a certain excerpt from Normal People and I did really like it, but the show put a little bit of an interesting taste in my mouth. But Beautiful World, Where Are You is a book that I know that Jack Edwards really recommends. So I basically just kind of am a little copycat from him and just like, if he liked it, I like it. We'll see about this. I haven't started it at all, but I am very excited to read it. No one is talking about this. Also a Jack Edwards recommendation because I only watch him on BookTube pretty much. This is kind of a hot take, but I really like when people have studied something related to either English or literature and then those people like are on BookTube, because it's like amazing to see that BookTube represents so many different people who are just like casual readers, people who are career readers, like people who do BookTube as a career, and then people who have gone to school for it and then are BookTubers, such as Jack, because the way that they just talk about it is just unmatched. I take a lot of his recommendations, but I'll like also take a Haley Pham recommendation. I'll also take any other BookTubers recommendations if I find that it's good. Okay, so No One Is Talking About This is a book mainly focused on observations made about social media and social media posts, virtue signaling. This is very heavy on the fact that it is focused on virtue signaling. It's a little bit hard to get through because this is like a book I need to read in spurts. It's not like one you can like sit down and read in one sitting successfully, at least to me. But I do appreciate some of these observations, and I am like a little bit of the way in. Another book that I want to read is Berry Pickers, because I just have been seeing it everywhere. It's one of those books where it's just like, I don't know anything about this book other than the fact that it's popular. Well, I guess I do know it's about a kidnapping. So yeah, looks like a popular book about kidnapping that I will be reading. Another that I was going to read this month is Happiness Falls. I was about to go pick that up from the library before I picked these up, and I was like, no. Let me save that for another day. I want to read these because I've been reading a lot of thrillers, and I think Happiness Falls is one of those thrillers that falls into like the Sally Hepworth, Alice Feeney's of the world. And I just am like, I need a little bit of a break. I need a little bit of humanity. So I feel like these books to me are very much reflective of humanity that I want to see. And that's it for my books I read in April and then my May TBR. If you have a suggestion for me, please leave one in the comments. Recommend a book that is introspective, a good cry socially, and potentially thrilling. Let me know. I'm really a big fan of Riley Sager's thrillers, so if you want to recommend me something similar to that, that'd be great. I'm looking for a good romance book that's like has a real feel to it. And yeah, wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time of day it is, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or night.